Arman Tsarukyan takes on Dan Hooker this weekend, and he will solidify himself as the number one contender and the clear-cut guy to fight Ilia Topuria. I think Tsarukyan wins this fight, and I'm very confident in that. The striking obviously favors Hooker, but Tsarukyan can close the distance and get into these wrestling exchanges that obviously favor him. First of all, the obvious thing that happens when a wrestler fights a striker will happen here as well, which is the wrestler's striking begins to look better than it actually is, because the striker is so worried about being taken down. Tsarukyan will fight freely on the feet, meanwhile Hooker is going to have to be a little defensive. Hooker is going to try and keep this fight at range, but Arman is going to make this fight close, and it's going to be harder for Hooker to land clean in those tighter windows. I believe that in round 1, Tsarukyan is not in a rush to shoot a takedown. I think he strikes for a bit, and Hooker has some moments, but Arman holds his own and eventually shoots a takedown and just controls Hooker. This is going to put that idea in his head that he can keep him down there all day long. In round 2, I think Tsarukyan continues to find success with double legs against the cage, and this just begins to wear on Hooker. This is a 5-round fight, and that sort of wrestling wears on you. We just saw it with Islam and JDM. That striking doesn't look the same after rounds of wrestling. I think some fighters are okay with the idea of being taken down because they believe they can get back up, but I think Tsarukyan's control is too good, and he can chain takedowns effectively, that Hooker is going to have to fight defensively on the feet. Over-aggressiveness from Hooker is just going to result in Arman ducking the strikes and getting easy takedowns. The only potential worry that I have for Arman here is that this is a 5-round fight and he hasn't fought in a long time. Hooker is a tough guy, and if Tsarukyan gets tired in rounds 4 and 5, there is potential that Hooker just pours it on in those later rounds. But I think I trust Arman's preparation, and I think his cardio will be just fine. Also, this won't be as tiring as fighting somebody like a Gamrot on the ground. This is a completely different fight for Arman than that. It's that 3rd or 4th round where I believe takedowns will be easier than ever for Tsarukyan, and he finishes the fight via ground and pound. Hooker, who will know that he's down on the scorecards, is going to have to take some risks to get back to his feet, and I think here is where Tsarukyan's going to capitalize by maybe taking his back and just raining punches. I think the damage is going to add up and the ref is going to stop the fight. This fight obviously has animosity built into it, and I think that's what makes it so intriguing. These guys obviously don't like each other, and there's so much on the line. This is a number 1 contender fight. Obviously for Arman if he wins, but I think for Dan Hooker too. It's also why I'm actively rooting for Tsarukyan to win. Because the fight between him and Topuria is the fight to make. And if you or anybody else were to pick a fighter in the lightweight division that could beat Ilia, it would be Arman. I don't know if he can do it, but this is the most intriguing fight in that division right now. Also, I know Arman will sell that fight. I know some people don't like him, but listen, he can be a little snob sometimes, but it works in the build-up to the fight. There is going to be drama between him and Ilia. It's also Ilia's turn to change some narratives about him. I see that people still bring up the fact that Bryce Mitchell held him down in their fight. But in this case, he would be fighting a much better wrestler in Arman, and he would get a chance to prove all of that wrong. But ultimately, the fight between Ilia and Arman would have the most important thing needed in a fight, which is belief. There has to be belief that Ilia's opponent has a legitimate chance to beat him, and that exists with Tsarukyan. But it doesn't with Gaethje or Paddy. Paddy could gain that belief by beating one more guy, which should be Gaethje, and he could earn that aura about him as well. I root for the most interesting matchup that can be made. I don't care if somebody doesn't like Arman's personality. I know that Ilia versus Arman is good for the sport. I think lightweight has struggled with repetitive names fighting again and again. Guys like Poirier, Gaethje, and Chandler have always been in the mix, and I want to see somebody else there. It's a fresh matchup, and this styles clash is what every fan wants to see. I don't think Topuria can bully Arman like he does some of those other guys. He's going to match that physicality. And another narrative on Topuria is the types of fighters he fights, which I hate, by the way. UFC fans tend to do this. When a guy loses, that guy automatically becomes washed, which makes no sense to me. He beat Volkanovski, and then Volk beat Diego Lopez afterwards. He knocked out Holloway, and then Holloway beat Poirier. He beat Oliveira, and then Oliveira had one of the best performances of his career against Gamrot. So I don't think the fighters he's fought are washed and old, but that is the narrative some fans try to create. You can't create any narrative like that if he were to beat Tsarukyan. I think Tsarukyan goes out there against Dan Hooker, looks excellent, calls out Ilia Topuria, and we get one of the best stylistic lightweight matchups ever.